I was just so honored to tell this story. I'm an old news girl, so in the news business, you boil down stories, big stories, are like 2 or 3 minutes. So to have the ability to share this vital but little known piece of Austin's history was so meaningful to me as a journalist and storyteller. And I want to once again tell everybody, all the descendants, how grateful I am that you shared your story with me. I met more tonight. I wish I could have talked to everybody, but then the film would have been about 5 hours long. Now, you probably recognize many of the people who were in the film on the stage tonight, and we're going to be sharing a little bit more about their connection to Clarksville and to the Haskell House, and then we'll be opening up to questions that you all have in the audience. But again, thank you so much for being here on this beautiful fall evening, and I can't begin to tell you how happy I was to hear the reaction from all of you. We know when you make a film, you never know how people are going to receive it, and to hear the laughter and the love in the room, that's something that will stick with me for a long, long time. Okay, so we're going to introduce the panel, and actually, if you all could just introduce yourself and then talk about your connection to Haskell House, Haskell, Clark, the Sweet Home Baptist Church. What's your connection to all of this?
My name is Steve Manning. I serve as pastor at Sweet Home Missionary Baptist Church and have done so for the last 16 years. It has been quite an honor to serve the people that are up here and to serve those of you who are in the back. I thank God for this, and it was a wonderful film.
My name is Phil Glasgow. I'm his, I guess it's going to be my Uncle Kai. I'm one of the guys who really kept him young, because I was one of those who was always going through his yard and snatches his peaches and plums and and getting shot at with the salt rock shotgun, but that was all the fun. You're going to do that, that's what you're going to get. So that's what I am.
Hi, everybody. My name is Stephanie Lang. I'm a community curator, founder of an organization called Reclaim, and a descendant of Clarksville. My great-great-grandparents, and I'm going to call their name, Milton and Nanny Gilmore, had a farm that is now Mopac. My great-grandparents lived on 10th Street, across from the park, and my grandparents met in Clarksville. They both worked for the Kazaragis, so there's a lot of connections, and the work in Clarksville that I've done has inspired all of the work that I'm doing now. So Clarksville helped me find out who I am, and I'm just grateful. There's so many people in the audience who were part of that journey, so I'm grateful.
I am Felicia Glasgow Miller, and I am a direct descendant of Kyle Haskell, Sr., my third great-grandfather. My grandparents lived out in Clarksville, and these two gentlemen are my uncles. I can appreciate more recent being more involved and learning more about my lineage. It just helps me appreciate all the hard work and perseverance that my family put in. And it's such an awesome thing to see that it's still standing, and that the family is still strong. Y'all see we deep up in here. So, but yeah, it's a beautiful thing, and one of my hopes is that the younger generation can appreciate it and that it continues to carry on as well.
Beautiful.
Hi, my name is Julian Glasgow, and Uncle Kai was my uncle. And I had a lot of time in that house, because he used to call my mom and tell her, send that big head boy down to my house. I need him to go to the store or pick the figs off the fig tree. And I did a lot at Uncle Kai's house, and a house that have nothing in it, no tub, no nothing, but he was the man that loved that house, and he took care of us in the community. And he always took care of me. He gave me 25 cents when I go to the store for him. That was a lot of money back then. When a candy bar cost a penny, I got 25 cents. I had a whole lot of money, And then Sweet Home Baptist Church always had been my church. And when I used to get in trouble at church, Mom used to discipline me at home, and I called Jesus, 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 Jesus. These times you hear me, Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. And today I am a preacher. So I've been calling Jesus for a long time. It wasn't just yesterday I came to be a preacher. And I used to get spanked all the time behind my sister Sheila, who was Sheila and I was close-knit, and we all still close-knit. And when she got in trouble, I got in trouble because we wouldn't tell on one another, so Mama whooped her first. I said, no, let me go first, Sheila. But Uncle Kai always been a lovely uncle, and I love him so much. And it means so much to see this on film. I can share with my children and my grandchildren what we have came through. We came through a lot at Sweet Home, you know, and also in Clarksville, because we have no road. The road was rocky. They used to send this DT truck come to the community. And we as children, we run behind the DT truck because it was fall. Get out of there, God, that's pausing. You ain't supposed to fall. And we love that DT truck. He came to the community, you know, but that's the kid and the mosquitoes and all that. But we enjoy that so much. I could talk all day, so let me stop. But Uncle Kai House meant so much. It still means a lot to me when I go by there. My grandchildren say, that's Uncle Kai House. Yeah, that's Uncle Kai House. That's right, the Haskell House. So brothers and sisters, please enjoy this house. Enjoy the community.
Wonderful. You know, I know, clap for these guys. It's a great panel. So much perspective on the stage tonight. I wished I'd gotten to meet Kai Haskell, because boy, does he sound like he was a character. You know, we only had 25 minutes to tell the story, and I was wondering if any of you could share some things that didn't make the film, maybe some memories or things that you want people to know about Haskell House, Clarksville, or Sweet Home that we didn't have time to share. One story, Reverend Manny, if you could tell the story about the singing back and forth from the front porches. I love that story, and I didn't get to include that in the film.
That's good, as long as I don't have to sing.
You have a beautiful voice. I've heard you sing on Sunday mornings.
Now, there are many in the audience who could tell that better than me. As I understand, Pauline Brown would walk out to her back porch, and she would sing much in the call and response mode of, she would call out, "In the morning when I rise." And someone from across the way, those of you who are familiar with this can tell me if I'm off base, but someone from across the way would say, "Give me Jesus," and it would go on that way. Now, how far off base am I? Okay.
What else can we share with the audience that didn't make the film? Good and bad and ugly, too.
One thing I want to share. Uncle Kai had that Buffalo Soldier uniform. And as a kid, I used to always dress up in that uniform, because I liked it so much, because he used to tell stories about it. And I wanted to be a Buffalo Soldier. So when I grew up, and went on, I joined the Marine Corps. And that's what I did. So I went in the Marine Corps, and unfortunately, I didn't get to come back to Hezikiah to see my uniform, because he had passed while I was gone.
Oh.
So, but that was my thing. But he's the one provided to me that made me join the military, because he was a Buffalo Soldier, and I wanted to be a soldier. So I couldn't be a Buffalo Soldier, so I became a Marine Corps.
You know, what I should have done initially was ask all of the members of Sweet Home who are present to either raise your hand or stand, please. Amen. Now, y'all know I'm looking for you in the morning, don't you?
Set him up, didn't you, Pastor?
We could not have told this story without Sweet Home and the help of Reverend Manning. That's where we gathered to interview a lot of you descendants, and it made it so much easier for us, because like I said, there were only two of us, so I'm, again, very grateful that you were sharing these wonderful memories. Who else wants to talk about some of the things that didn't make the film?
I'd love to share. I know it came up in the film some, but just a moment around the fact that Elijah Pease enslaved many people, many of who were ended up in Clarksville. And I just wanted to make sure that that was known, and just thinking about the power of that for the folks who were we settled in Clarksville. Not everybody was enslaved by P's who was in Clarksville, but those that were, including my family, just thinking about what that meant for them, right? This idea of freedom and perseverance. But I can imagine, walking by somewhere where you were once enslaved. Like, all of this just speaks to me about the amazing power of the people that settled and created Clarksville. And even if they weren't enslaved by P's, they were enslaved somewhere, right? And so I'm just so grateful, for them. And then the other thing I'd like to also mention, I'm the doom and gloom portion of this, but just on something else I think is really important is one of the things that is not talked about in Clarksville and other freedom communities is the way that these communities were displaced, even before the 1928 plan, right? My family always talks about they had a farm again in Mopac, where Mopac is, and they were run out. I'd mentioned this at the first screening, right? There were night riders. And this is something that we found, and we're doing research on different freedom communities. This has happened. And unfortunately, these aren't things that make considered the traditional archives, but these are stories that the elders have passed on. And so I think it's important that we also make sure that our stories are valued and what's being passed on is valued, because there's a lot of information there and there's a lot to think about and to kind of frame against what's happening now, right? So I just wanted to make sure that people were aware of that. We need to tell our own stories and hold on to our own stories. So, thank you.
Wonderful, Stephanie. And very, very important perspective. Felicia.
So just two things that I wanted to mention was that one of the things that I had learned of was the gold dollar. And I thought that was just absolutely awesome, something that was formatted out of Clarksville. And it was a newspaper that we got a chance to write and tell stories and communicate. And parts of those newspaper is archived, and it tells of some of the things that were happening during the holidays and what the families were doing. And so I thought that was awesome. The first African-American newspaper was rooted out of Clarksville. And one thing that I wanted to touch on was that the article in the documentary where it talked about Uncle Kai visiting the man, talking about his house, don't move his house. I had a personal experience with something like that. I had to be about 12 years old, and my grandmother, which is their mother, they lived in the house behind the Haskell House, and Miss Brown, Pauline Brown, wanted someone to help her clean the house that summer. And we hear ghost stories coming up as kids, so no one wanted to do it. And I said, okay, Miss Brown, because she was the choir director and we sung in the choir. And I told her, I said, well, I'll clean it with you. So we go inside the house, and at that time, it's not being utilized like it is now. And she was in the bathroom cleaning, and I was right there where the window was cleaning. And there was a window unit that was in there, but you couldn't use it because the cord was split for the AC. And so I hear whistling, and I told Ms. Brown, I said, do you hear that? And she said, yeah, it's just probably the wind. And I said, okay. So I'm cleaning, and I said, Ms. Brown, it's hot in here. She said, yeah, baby, I know. Let's just hurry up and get done because it was in the summer. And then I said, okay. About 10 minutes later, I said, it's hot. And the AC came on. The AC came. At first, I thought I was tripping until she peeked her head around the door out of the bathroom, and she says, did that AC just come on? That was it. She went to the door. I knocked her down the stairs to run out the house. And, I was 12, and it wasn't until last year, and I'm 45 now, it wasn't until last year where I stepped foot in the house again. It was that long. And I had to do a screening where we do oral history, and for the first time that I was in the house by myself, I said, now look here. I don't need to hear you. I don't need to see you. You go rest in peace. All shall be well. So, but yeah, that was a good fond memory.
I love it, Felicia. What a great story.
Yes, my Uncle Kai house, he had it was a gardener right next to his house. And he had a path go to my granddaddy house, and we walked through there all the time. And he say, "Boy, you be careful at nighttime. You make sure you get home when no lights go out, 'cause you got Mr. Harry, they called him in the community." I said, "Mr. Harry, we call it was a crazy asylum when I was a kid. We called it crazy asylum. It was a old military rehab behind 10th Street." And Mr. Harry would say it was a tall man, big tall man, and he chased kids around in the neighborhood. And one day my brother was coming home on his bicycle, my oldest brother, Perry, and he ran home up Wallison Street. And he riding his bicycle, and Mr. Harry was after him in that creek area back there, right at the end in the West Atlanta was a creek, and houses back there. Mr. Harry was chasing him over that creek. He picked up his bike and started running with his bike to the house. And Mom said, "What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you?" Mr. Harry is chasing me. Mr. Harry is chasing me. And Mom said, "Mr. Harry." And later on that night, our dog was just barking, and he stopped us to give us our bedroom window, and had a big footprint. And my mother called a police officer the next morning for the police officer to come and check it out. And he said, "Ma'am, I don't know who you had beside your house." He said, "But I wear size 13. And it made my feet look small, that big old footprint." And my brothers, and he could tell you more about Mr. Harry, but I was small at the time, so I told Mom I would never go home out about the Mr. Harry go off. And then the lights go off, and my Aunt Chula, who lived on West 11th, she called her children, and we were in Clarksville Park, and they lived over there in front of the church. And you could hear her from the Clarksville Park say, "Y'all come home now. Children, it's time to go home. Bernie, Carol, Herbert, y'all come home. Julian, all y'all go to your house." So they told us to go home. But Uncle Kai told us about that man, and he said, "Boy, you're going to see him one day. You quit doing it, Julian, okay?" "Yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir." "Now make sure you come and get these figs off this fig tree." I hated that house, that Haskell House, because I already got to go pick them figs off the fig tree when they come in. And figs, it made me itch. And Uncle Kai told my everything, "Come and get your figs, Julia. You know you send Julian down there to cut the figs off the fig tree." And Uncle Kai was such a sweet man. I love my Uncle Kai. I spent a lot of time in that house. I ate a lot of food from him. He cooked on that wooden stove. We party in a place. "Go use the restaurant." Okay, I go use the restaurant. "Okay, go in that bucket right there." "The bucket, Pop. Where the restroom, Uncle?" "Boy, I go use that bucket right there." So there was a bucket in the house that we used, because we didn't have the steward and everything. And I wrote. I want to stand up, but I'm gonna sit down. But our roads were dark. Our roads had holes in it. They had dust in it. Like she said, we didn't have no pavement. They come and pave. They call themselves paving our road, but what they do, they come and spray that black tar on there and say, "Your road is paved, but the hole is still there." Well, how about the asphalt? We wasn't that stupid, but your road is paved, young man. Go on about your business. It's gonna dry up. But so that's what's Clarksville. Now, about the night riders, now back in the 1960s to when I left in 1979, 78, I didn't know nothing about no night riders in Clarksville. Now, if there was night rider, it had been before my time, and I asked my brother about it. He didn't know about his time, but I didn't know about no night rider, because night rider been in very bad shape if they came to Clarksville, because I had some big cousins, and they weren't playing no night riders coming through Clarksville when we lived from 1960, when I was born, till I left in 1980s. I don't know when the night rider came, but it wasn't back in the 60s, because we weren't playing no night rider, no riders coming to Clarksville.
Yeah. It was before 1960. Right. We want to take some questions from the audience, and I know everybody's anxious to get to visit and have a few things to eat, but are there some questions that you all have for the panel or about the making of the film? Anybody? Yes. The video came from the Austin History Center. Is that right, Kim? Yeah. The city provided that to us, and we thought it was a gold mine to be able to see Mopac being built and to see Kai Haskell actually trimming his trees. I don't know whether they were the figs or which trees they were, but yeah, that's where we got it. Yeah.
And Mopac, Mopac back in the day, it was not but the train running through there. And it had wall, it had concrete, mountains all beside, and the train ran through the center. And we, as children, we ran through the train tracks. Because that's what we did. We had nothing to play with, so we played on the train track. And went to the train tracks, and the train track had holes in it. And we called them hobos back in the day. Hobo camps, but there was homeless folks. But we call them hobo camps. And we go hang out with the hobos in the hobo camp. And when the train come by, you know, we look at the train, through the mountains. You know, it was so much fun going through that train. Mama said, y'all gonna get run over by that train. Train comes right by. We stay at a zoom, train go right by. And then we go back in the hobo camp. Homeless folks at that time, but we called them hobo. It was hippie back in the days, you know hippies, long hair and all that, But that was back in the day. Don't get me started here.
The hobo camp. Yeah,
I was gonna
Stephanie.
say, the documentary is on YouTube. It's Clarksville 1970, so you can find it on.
Oh, yeah.
there.
Could find that. Wonderful. Who else has a question? Anybody else? Yes.
Well, my grandfather had a well on his property, and he kept it covered.
Philip,
at
move your
times-
mic up a little bit.
But at times, I would drop a rock, pretty sized rock then, me and Herbert would, and we could hear the rock fall for a long period of time before we had heard a splash. But so they pretty deep. But we never did draw water out of that well. We just stayed away from it because Granddaddy says stayed away from it. If he says stay away from something, you're going to stay away from it.
Yeah, Link Thompson didn't play. That's our grandpa that you see by himself a lot. Link Thompson, his name. But he didn't play with us as grandchildren. He took care of us. He brought food for the whole entire family, because we stayed right across the street from him. And when you get whooped from one force, you get whooped from the whole community, it seemed like, And Sweet Home was the church for all we knew was school, Sweet Home, wash clothes, hanging clothes. And I swear when I left home at 17 years old, I would never go to church a day of my life again because that's all we knew. And we didn't have no wash machine. We had scrub boards. We didn't have no dryer. We had to hang our clothes up. My mom said, you go play once you get through washing your clothes. And then you got to go clean the yard up. And all that clean the yard, I had to clean the dog mess up. And then I get the scrub board and scrub clothes on the scrub board. And then I got to hang the clothes on that clothesline. And then the son got to dry the clothes. Then I got to fold up the clothes and go play with my friends.
Yeah, what did happen to all the fruit trees? That's a great question.
The fruit tree belongs to other folks. Other folks' fruit trees.
You know what she's talking about? It was around the neighborhood itself.
Yeah.
There was fruit trees around the neighborhood.
Yeah, it was fruit tree around the neighborhood. That was on Wallison and Westland. Those fruit trees. Yeah, Chinese plums. Yeah. And plum and the plum granite trees.
Is
You
that
have those
Hattie?
too.
I
Yeah.
can't see. Yeah. Hattie? Wait, I don't think your mic is on. There you go. That's it.
I keep hearing people mention the one well. It was two wells that I was aware of out in Clarksville. The other well was located on Essex Avenue. That was the street that Mopac went through. In NLC's house, you know that, right? So there was a well there. I don't know whether that was ever mentioned.
So did it get destroyed when when
I think
Mopac
it
went
got-
through?
I think when they put Mopac through Essex Avenue, they destroyed that well, but it was a deep well because we would throw stuff down and you would never hear it hit the bottom.
Okay.
Yeah, that one's still there.
So,
A windmill well? Okay.
and one other thing, Julian, I'm mad because Uncle Kai gave you a quarter to go to the store. He only gave me a penny.
Well, you were a girl,
I had,
you know.
I had to go to the store and clean the house up with him. So I had some labor intensive with that, you know. But he always called me and say, Julia, send that boy down here. And I know who that boy was. Mama said, Julian, go to Hezikiah House. And I'll go to Hezikiah. It was Hezikiah is plus right now, but it was Hezikiah when I was coming up, you know. And that's my Hezikiah House. And I did a lot in that house. I know that Haskell House, boy.
Stephanie, did you have something to add?
I wanted to ask a question when you were talking about the cisterns or the wells. Like what I understood was like maybe before some of you were born, but that the wells were folks, because the water, they didn't have running water, right? Certain things were denied. They were using the wells to take water around to everybody. Is that
Is that
correct?
how it
Okay.
worked? Because the
Okay.
city was not
Right.
providing water,
Right.
correct?
So they
Yeah.
had, which speaks to the, the beauty of the community and how close knit
Yes.
everybody was.
The
Yeah.
perseverance and tenacity that everybody helped everybody else. Yeah. Sheila?
backyard, he would like go.
Sheila didn't want to talk.
He would go to that side, go out the back door, and then he'd go to the left of the corner where May used to live, and he would prime the well. And it was a big loop thing, like a hose thing hanging out, and he would prime it like 1, 2, and then 3 makes the water flow. So he had to been pumping off of Granddaddy's well to make his water come, because that's where he would get his water from all the time. Me and my sister Vanessa used to go back there and get water from there. And he said, don't pump it too many times, because if you do, you're going to have water running everywhere. I didn't know whether if he had a well on his property, but now that I'm thinking, yes, he was priming off of Granddaddy's well. And
Yeah, it was back at Granddaddy's, and we pumped that all the time, and Sheila did. And Mike Cluck was our brother. He used to play behind that. Mike Cluck was a Caucasian brother, and he used to play behind that pump, well, especially at nighttime, and make us scared. And again, John said, "You better get from behind that, Cluck. I got my gun. You're gonna get shot. You're gonna get shot." But we used to pump water. We didn't dig it like old time, but we pumped it with the pump, and pump, and then the water that flows from there. Yeah, we did a lot with little kids back there, you know, and man, pumping that water and seeing Akakai and seeing my Cluck and we.
You know, the magic of that family atmosphere in Clarksville must have been a wonderful place to grow up. And, you know, now people don't even know their neighbors, and y'all were family, you know, with Pauline Brown and Mary Baylor. I mean, it's just, I think that's lacking in a lot of neighborhoods and areas today in communities all over the country. All right, who else has a question? Anybody else have a question before we head out and eat a little bit?
Have one up there.
Yes.